Welcome to the show. We're on RC Action Podcast, episode 2. Welcome, everybody. I want to obviously put my guests out here. My special guest this week is, again, Chuck. Welcome, everybody. I want to just give me a sec. Sorry, we're getting some. Put my guests out here. My special guest this week is, again, Chuck. Welcome, everybody. I want to just give me a sec. Sorry, we're getting some. Put my guests out here. My special guest. Sorry, I'm getting some interference, but we have Chuck from Vancouver. We also have Danny Buck from Saskatoon Sarkar, as well as the Saskatoon Off-Road Club. How are you guys?
Excellent.
Super.
Awesome. Chuck, I know you always rush to get into into the podcast, so I really appreciate it, and thank you for coming. And Danny, I'm glad you're here. I'm very honored to have you on the show. I guess I know everybody kind of knows Chuck, but Danny, tell us a little about yourself, and for those of the people that don't really know you that much.
Yeah, I guess I started racing in 2004 with my dad. We bought some Losi Triple XSs. And raced at the club level, doing the school gym thing, hauling carpet in and out the temporary track deal. Did a little bit of asphalt racing through that time, and then in 2009 we got a permanent track in Saskatoon here, and that's when I started to kind of take this a little bit more seriously, and so I raced at a fairly competitive level, I believe, from 2009 until about 2017. Mostly on road, but with a little bit of off road in there as well. I raced some gas buggy, and then in 2018 we had a kid. My wife, we had a kid, and so I took a little bit of a hiatus, and I'm just making a bit of a comeback here this year. So.
Oh, it's great.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I want to tell
internationally. Like he was international. He was going to Time Zone. That was an awesome track, Danny. Time Zone was awesome.
Yeah.
And then life just gets in the way, but it's glad to have you back.
Yeah, no, it definitely it's good to be back. I'm happy to be back. I definitely have a little bit different perspective on racing than I used to. Definitely a little less serious, a little more fun. This time around, not looking to set the world on fire, just kind of looking to do my thing.
Yeah, enjoy it, right? Like Danny, I remember back in the classic Wix days of the Western Canada series. I remember watching you, and hopefully one of the viewers, I've talked to him numerous times, Wayne Ma, another great driver out of Canada, out of Western Canada, and you guys battled for, I think I was following the series for roughly about the 3 years. I watched you guys go back and forth city to city. It was awesome.
Yeah, we definitely had some good scraps kind of from that 2013 era, right kind of up until I kind of stopped racing there in 2017. Actually, the last sort of big travel race I did was Mile High Indoor Champs in 2017, and both Wayne and I managed to make it to that race, and we're just as close there as we were here. Obviously, level of talent at a race like that is a little bit higher yet. So he made it into the show, and I didn't quite. I think I was P11 and he was P9 or something like that. But yeah, definitely lots of good battles with Wayne over the years.
Yeah, and one of the stories I have, it was actually with Chuck. We were all. You and Wayne were racing in the A main, and I want to think it was mod. I was trying to think of it last night, but I want to say it was either mod or stock. You guys were battling first and second, and by my luck, I was in the B main, and obviously I had to marshal for the A main guys, and I was on the last corner before the finish line, the start-finish line. And, the whole time that the crowd was just going absolutely crazy. Everybody was ooh ah. You guys were kind of just passing each other back and forth.
Yeah, that was Victoria.
Yes, Victoria. Yes. And I was at the last corner, and I said to myself during your race between you and Wayne, please don't mess up in my corner. Don't do anything in my corner. Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
Don't get me involved.
And by-
Don't get me involved.
Yeah, that's right. And by the last second, when everybody was just, you could hear the place just completely quiet down.
Yeah.
You two went right to my corner, and something happened, and I went into absolute panic. That I'm like, man, I don't want to mess anybody up. You guys are both amazing drivers, and so on and so on. But yeah, it was one of my classic, Wayne Ma, Danny Buck stories for sure.
Yeah. Victoria is definitely a fantastic race. I know they're kind of trying to get that race going again, even though Wix isn't around anymore, obviously. But I mean, yeah, that's a fantastic trophy race. If anybody gets a chance to go, it's run by some guys who've been doing this a long time, and they really have their stuff together when it comes to running stuff. So
yeah. Speaking of Wix, Mike, I don't know if you know this, but Danny actually helped test a lot of the Wix tires. I think at the end of a Calgary race, he was asked to do some testing for the Wix tires one time. So just so that they could see like what the differences were. So Danny was actually a part of that testing the Wix tire, the one that you hate.
Yes. I actually remember, I think we were packing up and leaving or getting ready to go. And you guys were actually testing. Now that you mentioned that, Chuck, I kind of do remember that. Yeah.
That was when we did the big move from Jayco's to Sweeps, because we were starting to have supply issues at that time. So
right.
That was, I think they put
totally
like me and Wayne and Steve Soon. They just walked up and they're like, here, test these sets of tires.
That's right. Yes. I remember because we were all like, oh, check this out. They're actually testing the new tires.
Yeah. It's like the postseason testing in F1. They get out, they get guys out there testing into the Pirelli tests or whatever. Like, here, throw these on, see what they do.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, yeah, that's you know what? You're an awesome driver. I'm kind of happy you came back. I know the story a little bit, but maybe you want to tell a little bit about the story of how you kind of came back.
Yeah, so it was actually sort of it was unintentional. I mean, like I mentioned before, I did a little bit of off-road in the past, but not a lot, mostly 8-scale buggy, and I did a couple seasons of it and decided I was sort of done doing, the clutches and dealing with the fuel and carb tuning and the whole bit. I'm definitely more of an electric guy. And then the off-road club locally, Mike, yourself, and when you were here, and Sean, you guys reached out and asked if I wanted to RD the trophy race, and so I said, yeah, absolutely. I like RDing races. I RD'd a few races even kind of while I wasn't racing at all. And it just so happened that I think it was the first. I don't remember if it was the first or second one that I RD'd, but my dad had entered a raffle for a car, and threw his $20 in, and got his tickets, and they pulled his name from the hat at the end of the weekend there for the car kit. It was Associated B74.1. And so he went out and he ran a couple times, and historically dirt hasn't been his thing. He's doesn't necessarily like cleaning cars, and the messiness that generally comes from off-road, and the lack of traction and all that kind of stuff. So he wasn't necessarily super jazzed about going. So I just went, well, can I borrow it? So did a trophy race last year, and then kind of came back racing with a borrowed car again, sort of more full time this year, and recently have pretty drastically expanded my race program, kind of back racing a bit of on-road again, and it's a good time.
And I guess obviously, now you're with Associated.
Yeah, that was a kind of opportunity that came up. Just I've really enjoyed the B74-1. Obviously, it's not the current platform, the 0.2, and was getting good results with it, and just got talking with Pete and kind of made something happen, and so they're Associated, and Reedy and factory team are helping me out for this season, and so for off-road I'm running their stuff, and And then for on-road, I guess obviously they don't have an on-road car at the moment, so got an Awesomatics on the bench full of Reedy equipment. So it's
Right.
it's early days, but so far so good. I mean, it performed, on-road car performed well in Calgary, and it'll be the first outing for the Reedy powered machine this coming weekend at the off-road track. So
Right. And see, this is where I want to say Team Associated Reedy, awesome for giving us that raffle prize for Saskatoon. We were able to give it and get it to a driver, and now he's driving back off-road and on-road, which is awesome.
yeah, it was the gateway drug for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess Chuck, you guys just had the OGR race. How did that go? Oh, I don't know if he froze or not.
Looks like he might have.
He might have just froze. Sorry. So I guess we just have a question come up on. We'll wait till hopefully Chuck gets back online here. We just have a question from Rod, actually. Rod from from Regina. He's asking if any of you guys run 12 scale at Sarkar.
Yeah, there's I think there's 3 or 4 fellas at Sarkar that run 12 scale. I mean, we'll definitely have. This is kind of a nice segue into chatting a little bit about our race coming up here, the 19th to 21st of April. We'll definitely have a 12 scale class there. Yeah, so there's a few guys locally that run it.
Okay, well that's perfect, Rod. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, I guess let's, I think Chuck, you're back now. Hey Chuck, can you hear us? Okay, sounds good. So you guys just had your OGR race in Vancouver. How did that go?
Yeah, we just had our March Madness at Overgear Racing in Vancouver. It's nice because we only get to book the facility for one day, so it's we call it March Madness because it's essentially.
Oh, I think we're having some connection issues with Chuck. Chuck, you there? Well, we'll probably have to come back to him. Hopefully, get back on here.
All good, all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can chat about the car race a little bit. Chuck's.
Yeah, for sure. Let's we'll come back to the OGR, but yeah, you also came to you also came back to the car race that just recently happened.
Yeah, it was a fantastic event. I mean, Blaine and James and the team there. I don't know who all was involved, so obviously Mike, probably yourself, but I don't know who the organizational crew there is at Car, but you guys did an absolutely fantastic job running the race, and it was a great layout and a great time, and it was definitely I threw myself in a bit of a pot of boiling water to start with. Show up, pick up a car at the track, and start running mod touring car with it right away. That was a little bit of a I forgot how much I forgot moment. But yeah, it was an excellent time. It was a great time.
Yeah, for those of you guys who don't know, who's some of our viewers out there, basically Car we had every year Car has this race, but this time we called it the Canadian Carpet Championships, and it was actually a really great turnout. Typically brings a lot of people all together from the West, all the way from obviously Saskatoon as well. And it's a great race. I think we had roughly about 40 drivers in stock, which was, post COVID, it's actually great numbers and showing that the hobby's slowly coming back and stuff like that. And the nice thing is, being there that weekend, for me, I saw a lot of old people that are like, Mike, you know what? I'm thinking about coming back. I'm thinking about coming back to the hobby, and stuff like that. So, which was awesome. And my luck, FYI viewers out there, I actually have Blaine Everingham, our president for Car. He's going to be on the next episode 3, and we're going to kind of dive into Car a little bit more and and the race as well. So yeah, that's upcoming. But having Danny back, it was an actual shocker to hear that. Yes, he's coming back to on road, right? And
Yeah.
Chuck, I'm hoping you fixed your are you good?
Yeah, somebody picked up the phone and the dial-up modem disconnected.
You're just slumming it out there in BC. I get it.
So sorry, Chuck. You were talking about the March Madness.
Yeah, the one-day race. What is it? I think we had between 60, 65 guys showing up. We typically count by unique users as opposed to entries, just because it's a more accurate way to gauge the club, attendance. Because you can say that you had 100 entries, but if it's 20 guys running 5 classes each,
right,
doesn't really do anything. Our average is less than two entries per person, so having 60 guys is awesome.
That is awesome. That's for a one-day race. Like, you guys squeezed it all in. What time did you guys start in the morning, out of curiosity?
I got there at 5. Actually, no, I was a little late, 5:30. So we roll out the carpets, and then we do 3 qualifiers, and then we do the mains, and there's still practice in between, and there was enough time in between for us to eat Chinese food. It was great. Yeah. So that's the main thing. You got to have the Chinese food when you're in Vancouver. It's the best Chinese food in Canada. And you had talked to me.
I will defend that. You had talked to me about that one-day race, and I said, you know what? If I could, I would actually drive out for it, because now you don't have the hotel issue. You got, basically 2 or a day to kind of spend in the city and enjoy the city as well. And kind of ram it all into one day, right? Which is kind of nice too.
Yeah, it works out really well, and I think it works because there's 3 of us that are rotating on the microphone, so it's not just one person running the entire thing, but there's 3 of us. Myself, Chris Lim, Samson typically helps out, and then we got Curtis as backup, and then we also have our 4th guy, Mario. We call him Bok Choy, but yeah. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's just a good rotation. And then we have a dedicated track crew led by guys like Doug, Darren, Terrence. Those guys are really helpful to make sure that the track is ready in between every race and every qualifier. So it's a nice system that we have working out, and it's been good. We all communicate. We all share our frustrations so that we can work it out. That's the key thing. Just, communication is super, super important to operate a club, especially when we're trying to operate it at such high efficiency for a one-day race.
Right. For sure. And you know what? 20 heads, 30 heads are better than 1 or 2 heads trying to put a club together, right? It's always kind of like the big bonus when everybody gets involved in some way, somehow. And people got to find their niche and where they feel comfortable helping out in the club, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I guess, speaking of, upcoming races, we were talking a little bit about, let's just start out with, again, the Sarkar event. I guess, Danny, give us a little bit of intro of what's happening there.
Yeah, so Sarkar decided to kind of get together a trophy race, with the series, everything sort of not being around anymore, and sort of post-COVID, kind of made sense to us to get a race fired up again. And so the first annual Bridge City Brawl is happening on April 19th to 21st. And we'll be offering the whole litany of classes, touring stock, mod, 12-scale stock, F1, mini, pretty much the whole gamut. And that's thank you very much to our sponsors for that one, RC America, and sorry, I have the list here. We got RAD Racing Development, we got Ultra RC Hobbies, obviously locally. We got Great Canadian Oil Change on Central Ave, another local business. So definitely a local race. I don't know, just kind of trying to get a trophy race back in the city again.
That's that it's amazing. You guys actually did a race, back in the Wix days, and it was in a mall, I remember, and I happened to actually just go see it, and I kind of was off racing at the time, and I thought you guys did amazing. So I can't wait to see what you guys put together for this event, because you guys. I remember another one that actually went to race that you guys were at like a gymnasium of some sort, and it was awesome. You guys built a driver stand for it and stuff like that, which was really amazing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the driver stand was definitely a big upgrade from some of the stuff that we've seen. I won't name any venues. I won't name and shame, but
Right.
yeah, it's definitely
Confederation Hotel. The Confederation Hotel. That's the best place in town. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd necessarily recommend that. There's definitely better places to stay, a lot closer to the venue. So. But yeah, it's been a few years since we put on a trophy race. You know, we I think the one of the last big ones we would have done would have been in 2019 with IRTC out of Lloydminster. You know, Dan and Anthony and the guys there. And so, you know, that was a super great race. Hopefully there's some Lloyd guys that come out. I know they're probably a little rusty. They unfortunately don't have a venue, and they haven't been racing too much lately, but would still love to see some of them out.
No, for sure. Yeah, I know the last time I was talking to them, they were having a bit of issues with their kind of club facility and stuff like that, and that's why they kind of said to me, Mike, I don't know if we're going to be able to make it to Calgary right now. We've got so much stuff that's going on left, right, and center, which is understandable, but we want those guys back. Those guys are amazing guys over there too.
Yeah, and I mean Anthony. I mean he still paints some absolutely killer bodies for us. I believe it's him that's coming on as a sort of a sponsor for us as well. He's donating a body and I believe a paint job as well.
Yeah, and I guess I just got reminded. You guys are giving away a pretty good prize for like a grand prize for the door, if I'm not mistaken, from Ultra RC.
We've X12. Got that's right. Yeah, we've got an X-Ray X12 kit again, you know, supplied by RC America. So you know, thanks very much to that connection there. And yeah, we got a X-Ray X12 20. I believe it's a 24 kit. That's going to be sort of our grand prize for the raffle. So definitely a super solid car. If you know, whether you're into 12 scale or whether you're thinking of getting into 12 scale, it's definitely a really solid platform to start with.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what, the 12 scale class, like, man, if you want to speed up how good you are in driving, learn how to drive a 12 scale, because boy, does it open up absolutely so many doors.
Yeah, especially now, like you know, since a few things have changed since I stopped racing. You know, they got they're running spools in the rear, and you know, you got all these interesting cars. You know, the Awesomatics, the A12's got like the pivot at the front. They're definitely super different. There's been a lot of big changes in 12 scale in the last few years.
Sounds good. We just had a question come up on our YouTube. It was from Darren from Saskatoon on the off-road side, actually. He was wondering how he can buy tickets. Do you know if he can buy tickets for the X12?
I'm not sure if we're pre-selling tickets. I know we're definitely selling tickets at the race. But Darren, I'll get an answer on that, and I'll pipe up once I've got something back.
Well, that's also another thing. Maybe Darren, just come into the race. Yeah, that way you can get your ticket while you're there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So I guess you know, with everything said, you know, we're glad to have you back, Danny. It's awesome that you're back into the scene and stuff like that. And yeah. And Chuck, I don't know if you have anything else from Vancouver, like Vancouver news upcoming and stuff like that.
Big Barn in May, the Big Barn race.
Of course.
So that's a little down the road, but yeah, it's April now. May is coming just around the corner. It's a race that a lot of people have been waiting for. The Big Barn, it was away for a while for, you know, current event world reasons, but it's back, and there is a large demand. I think they're at over 300 entries right now, so that's pretty awesome. It's a very large track. It's like the typical track that you might see in the States, like a PNB. Like, it's a 200-foot track inside. It's awesome. If you haven't tried a race like that, you got to try it. Yeah. Right.
You know, Chuck, do you have plans for you and Miyako to show up?
That's the plan. That's the plan to run my Mayako. I've also got my JQ e-buggy. It's still ready to go, so I can choose one or the other. But yeah, definitely there, and also there for team support as well. We've got a few other guys that run the Mayako Nitro car, being part of Team Mayako. It's it's something that I'll definitely do what I can to support those guys, whether it's
That's awesome.
getting them coffee in between rounds, or if it's being their pit guy and tuning their engines. I'm there. I'll do it. Yeah.
Oh boy, oh boy. Chucky actually absolutely killed me. It's awesome. I love it. I love it. So I guess with that all being said, like I said, Car, we just had our big event and stuff like that, and it was an absolute success. I can't wait till next year and what next year holds. But I'm kind of going to hold off on the car thing because I'm excited to have Blaine Everingham, the president of Car, come on the show for the next episode. So we'll go over that. But the real, I guess, we'll move on to what we kind of put together for this episode and we thought about is maintenance and basically a maintenance talk. And what we're going to do is basically count down from 5, each of what we think is, the top 5 things that we think about for maintenance. So viewers out there, this is probably something you want to kind of think about, listen to, and maybe hopefully pick up something that was going to help your race program. And, I'd ask, Danny and Chuck to, kind of keep it as general as we can and for off-road and on-road because, viewership and stuff like that. And actually all 3 of us are kind of both anyway in some way or matter of form. So, Chuck, I'll start with you on number 5, what you had as number 5 for your maintenance.
Yeah. Know when to throw something into the garbage. That's a really important thing.
Is Ivan Shannon on there somewhere?
Talking about you, Ivan.
Say.
That's right. Know when to throw something into the garbage, whether it's a screw. If you notice that your driver starts to slip, pull the screw out, throw it away, put in another one. Too often we see people that just have stripped screws or like worn out universal drive shafts or something. And it's just like, that totally could have been prevented because you couldn't even finish your race. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, just know when to throw something into the garbage.
Yeah. And that means no tie straps, right? That means no tie straps.
Well, if the tie straps used, yeah.
Only for wires. To your point about the rounded out screws as well, Chuck, replacing your drivers every once in a while or the tips on your drivers is super important.
Absolutely.
Otherwise you definitely risk rounding out a lot more screws. And, if you're putting fancy titanium or aluminum screw kits in your car, those things are expensive. You don't want to have to buy a second kit just to round a bunch of them.
Exactly. Don't be afraid. Throw those drivers away. Destroy them. Yes.
Put them with the transponders, right? Yeah.
Yes. Destroy them with the transponders.
Danny, what did you have for number 5?
My number 5 was just check the basic stuff between runs. Like just throw your car in a setup board, check your ride height, your down stops, your droop. Maybe more of an on-road thing. Camber, tweak, just kind of the basic stuff, right? If you just, even with off-road, if you just kind of give the car a little bit of a shimmy on the setup board, you can often see something or hear something that's not quite working right, or with on-road, if you got a screw backed out or something like that, when you go and kind of check tweak and everything, you'll notice that. So just kind of give everything a good once over between runs. It doesn't take super long, and it can definitely pay off.
I hear a lot of like racers say, my car's working well. I'm not going to touch it. And I used to do this years ago. I used to be the guy who was, well, I ain't going to touch it. That's, and I'm going to say right now on the air, that is the absolute wrong thing to do, because I've found so many broken things or something that's tweaked and stuff like that. So, if you could come away with anything from this podcast today, you know what? Go over your car. It's super vital.
Yeah, and make sure you record settings, because when you take stuff apart and put it back together, you got to make sure you have record of what you did, right? So,
no, for sure. Yeah, my number 5 was, I went to the Ty Tessman Gord Tessman clinic in Saskatoon, actually, when Sean Sharp had put that together. And it was an
Yeah.
awesome experience, 2-day experience. And it was funny. I walked away, and my wife, as you guys know, again, my wife's my pit wife, and she said, well, what did you think? And I said, you know what? It was 2 days of them talking about shocks and how important shock and shock oil is. And obviously, I think it applies to on road too. But I found after I did the shock as often as I did, especially off road, as soon as my car felt weird or out of place, by doing the shock oil, it was like back to normal again. And I said, oh, okay. I'm not chasing something else like tires or wing or anything like weight or anything like that, right? I just find that after 2 days of with investments, it was just 90% of it was talking about shocks and in depth into shocks. And I walked away going, yeah, they're right. It's all about shocks, 100%.
It's such a massively important part of the off-road cars. I mean, it's basically tires and shock package. If you don't have those two things at least close, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess, Chuck, what did you have for number 4?
Number 4, have a clear or a clean table. That was one thing, because and that's something that's often overlooked or forgotten during a race day. Just having a messy table with stuff all over the place. It's just you got to remember, pull it back, and just clean up and clear your table. Make sure that when you reach over to this side, you know what's there. When you reach over to this side, you know what's there. Having a clear, clean table, super important. One guy that is a great example is Blake Bell. Yeah. Blake's table is immaculate.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, both Blake and Luke, those guys. It was it was kind of funny actually watching them set up sometimes, because Blake had his ruler and he'd measure out exactly how wide a pit space was supposed to be and whatever. I don't know if he just did that to irritate Luke or not, but it was pretty funny.
But you also need to have a space for the Oreo cookies, though, right, Chuck?
Oh, absolutely.
You got to have the cookies there. Absolutely.
And Danny, what was your number 4?
My number 4, Chuck kind of mentioned it already, but just rebuild your CVDs. I know it's a pain. There's a bunch of small parts in there, and they're greasy and messy. But man, there's so many handling issues that can come from having a CVD that's got a little bit of a pit in it or something like that. It can, because if you're on power and the car rolls, and your CVD's got a hitch in it, it'll affect how the car rolls, and it'll roll fine and then hit that little lip and kick over, and you might grip roll or something like that. There's so many things that it can mess you up if you've got bad CVDs, and also if you don't keep them rebuilt and lubricated, it actually costs you more money, because you end up replacing them all the time, especially the aluminum ones. In the fronts of touring cars, at least, and I guess in most off-road applications, they're steel. But those aluminum rear ones, man, when the car squats down on power, if you've got a bad one, it's and I mean, modern cars they're hard on them, right? You're on power a lot, and there's a lot of power going through these drive systems now. So it doesn't take a lot for them to really.
DCJs, definitely, yeah.
Well, the DCJs up front, and even just the regular CVDs in the rear, because they're typically the aluminum ones, right? So they tend to wear a little harder. So. And then when the car squats down on power, if you get that hitch, car can kick loose, and it just causes all kinds of problems. So keep your CVDs, keep your CVDs lubricated.
It's funny you say that. Actually, my mod LCQ at Car, I had I think it was my front drive shaft. Yeah, it was my front drive shaft that went. And see, it's because we didn't talk before the race, and had you told me and the secrets. I would have messed up completely on my LCQ, but
that's funny. Yeah. I was going over somebody's car just on Sunday night here, or Sunday afternoon, and I won't name and shame, but it's okay, we're starting to look at this car, and you get it the ride height set, and you check the tweak and whatever, and you get the camber set, and you start looking at the car, and you're like, oh. These shocks don't feel right. And to your point, if the shocks feel weird, the whole car feels weird. And then, get the shocks rebuilt, and you start looking at it again. It's like, oh man, one of these CVDs is not CVDing anymore. So it's like, okay.
Right.
And then, you were hoping to kind of, get the setup squared up and then get some laps. But then, you end up spending a couple hours or an hour kind of rebuilding stuff just to make sure that it's consistent.
Right. And I guess that's nice because you actually segued into my number 4, which is kind of your number 5. But it basically my number 4 was rebuild and reset the setup. I see a lot of guys, what they do is, either don't rebuild at the before the race, or rebuild, the Friday of a race, and now they're panicking to get onto the track. And I was that guy on Friday, actually, of a CCC, but that was my fault. But rebuilding is so crucial because you get to find out what's wrong, what's broken, what's tweaked, everything that you talked about in your number 5. But essentially, it's stuff that you just kind of like want to forget on a race day. You know what I mean? You want to concentrate on lines, competition, time, stuff like that. Yeah. But rebuild is so important. And then the other thing of that rebuild, like I said, is the reset of the setup. A lot of people, what they like to do is, okay, this setup worked in Calgary, I'm going to Saskatoon, and I'm going to use that same setup. And it's like, it's not going to work. You got to go back to base and start again when you get to Saskatoon, right?
Magic.
And by doing, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's why it's important to record settings, right? If because if you can go back to base every time, you're starting from square one every time. But if you know what you ran last time that worked well, so like I developed, I got a setup that I was comfortable with at Car at the Champs race, and so if I came out there again or something before the end of the year, it's like, okay, well, I'll just set my car to this, and I know I know what I'm going to show up with, right?
Yeah, what you're
continue working on it from there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Next time I go to Car, I'm gonna have dynamic toe, right? 4 degrees of dynamic toe at Car. That's awesome. That setup.
Yeah. It is crazy, and yes, Chuck, I still continue to use it. Yes.
Yeah. So Danny, I had my car set up so it was at 4 degrees. Let me see, 4 degrees. But then when it squatted, it went to 0. So I had a lot of no slip angle. It was just, and it worked.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, cool.
I started out with the opposite there. I had like no bump steer shims on those arms, and it was just like, I'd set it to 2.5 static toe in the rear, and then I'm like, man, why won't this car turn on power? Like the rear's just locked. I can't get it to do anything when I'm on power, and it's like, start looking at the bump steer shims. It's like, oh, that's why.
Yeah,
you're right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Okay. Chuck, what did you have for your number 3?
Number 3, lighting. Lighting is really important. That's really overlooked. It's to have good lighting. You can't rely on some of the lights at some of the places that you're at. So make sure you have good lighting. Have a pit light, or be in a position where you'll have light, because that's kind of important. I remember at times when people were wrenching in the dark, and I'm like, well, first of all, you're drunk, so you're not going to help. But, wrenching in the dark is just not a good idea.
Yeah. Right. I was wrenching in a hotel once and nearly glued my hand to the table gluing tires for an 8th race because I'd had a little too many pops before I started.
Oh, that's awesome. Ooh, that's awesome. No, it's true. Lighting is a huge factor, and as like me, for example, I'm getting older and older. I need more lights and magnifying glasses. I've got all kinds of equipment just to go see something, right?
Right. I didn't have these last time I was racing, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And Danny, what did you?
Yeah,
Danny, what did you have for number 3?
My number 3 was don't use like brake cleaner or motor spray on anything with specifically rubber seals. So like shock O-rings, diff O-rings, that kind of thing, and even plastics. The RC car plastics. I mean, they know what people do. So I think there's definitely at least a little bit of consideration given to some degreaser interaction, but generally not great to use degreaser or specifically brake cleaner and motor spray on plastic, and certainly not good to use it on anything with rubber.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Because with especially O-rings and stuff like that, they can dry out after time, and
Yep.
then you're in the middle of like, let's just say, and we're going to talk about nitro buggy. You're in an hour-long nitro buggy race in, like, plus 40 or plus 40, plus 50 heat. Oh man, that is just gonna come out, and there's all your shock oil, right?
Yeah, you're gonna end up with all of it on the
Yeah.
tires, and
Yeah, pretty much.
been there,
My
unfortunately.
number, yeah, my number 3 was tire gluing and making sure the bonding is proper. It happens in off-road. It happens a little bit in on-road as well, where people, start chasing a setup, and I watch people chase the setup, and then they go, "Mike, what's wrong with my buggy?" And I'm like, and I just look at the tires, and they're starting to pull over because, the bonding had let go, especially in electric, where it's the tire just balloons.
Yeah.
And then I see a guy just absolutely chase the setup for half a day and go, "Man, here's a new set of tires. Let's see what happens." He's like, "Mike, oh, it's perfect again." And I'm like, "Yeah, it was just because of the glue, right?"
Yeah.
I think that's a big one that gets missed a lot.
Oh, you can tell too sometimes, especially with 8 scale. Like when you hear the tires fapping around, it's like, oh yeah, he needs to glue his tires. There's no point.
Yeah, that's a bad time. Yeah, and definitely just like making sure that you've done your prep appropriately on both on the wheel and the tire. Clean the bead. Clean the mounting surface on the wheel. Use a little bit of simple green or something like that on the tire and on the wheel before you hit it with glue, and generally eliminates a lot of issues.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I exactly as you just said. The funny part is a lot of people say, "What's the secret of gluing the tires and making sure they're stuck?" And it's the prep. It's the prep before that, right?
Yeah. And actually, I'll mention too. There's an absolutely fantastic video. I don't want to call it a series, a video pair on YouTube that Alex Hagberg did quite a few years ago now, talking about kind of how he shows up at a track that you're buying pre-mount spec on-road tires, and so he goes through and he checks the glue, and he weighs everything, and he checks it on a balancer, and again it's all just down to that kind of preparation to make sure that your car's not doing funny things because your tires are weird, right?
Yeah, definitely. Chuck, what did you have for number 2?
It's kind of hand in hand with I think what you guys talked about, or what I talked about, compartmentalizing. So not only having a clean surface, but too many times you see people with like a handful of like M3 screws, and it's like, what are those? You don't know. What those M3 screws are. So like, having your 8mm M3 screws, having your 12mm M3 screws, like, compartmentalize them. So that way it's organized and it's just easy to get to. You know where to reach to grab the right screw. Because it's kind of funny sometimes when you see someone with just a pile of stuff.
You'd hate my bench right now.
Oh man.
I'm really bad for that. I get wrenching and I don't get thinking about keeping clean, and it just gets bad fast.
Yeah, so not just the tools need to be organized, but the screws and the bits, because once stuff gets all over the place, it's just like, wow, okay, what am I reaching for? Like,
where did it go?
Yeah, and the other thing too is you got to imagine, like, let's just say you break it in qualifier 1 and qualifier 2 is coming up soon. You don't want to be scrambling through screws trying to find the right length, So exactly what Chuck's saying, you make sure your stuff's like on
where's my nuts?
Where it's supposed to be. Yeah, that's right. yeah, definitely. What did you have for number 2, Danny?
For number 2, I just had a thing about if you got space on your shocks or your diffs, it's always good to write the oil, and I guess for off-road a little more specifically the kind of the pistons. And sometimes I guess how many limiting spacers and stuff you have in them, just so that you've got a really quick visual check of what you've got in the car. Everybody wants to do a setup sheet every time they go out, but most of the time they don't. So sometimes it can languish like, oh, what did I put in there again? So it's always really good to just have a really quick visual check. You can even codify it if you want, if you're worried about people stealing your secret sauce. But
that's funny you say that. Like, you could do that on the diffs as well, right? Like, you could do that same idea on the diffs.
Yeah, I know that's one thing that Gary here at Sarkar always does. He like silver Sharpie on like anything, right? Like silver
Yes.
Sharpie,
Yeah.
like diff oils, or like if there's some little indicator, it's silver Sharpie, just so that it's like super quick, easy to check, and then you just know what's in there, right? You're not like squinting
Yeah.
and taking the car half apart just to find out that, oh, the thing I wanted to change to is already in the car.
No, that's right. It's funny you say that too, because there was somebody that asked me over that last race at Car, did you have your rear diff? And I said, let me go look, because I remember writing it down, right? And the Gary secret of writing it down with the silver Sharpie, I do it the same thing because I learned it from that amazing guy. So yeah. And I guess my number two was cleaning the bodies and wings. And this is for on-road and off-road. I find in off-road, wings tell me a lot after a jump, whether I'm touching on the backside of the jump or not, and if I need to readjust either ride height, wing height, anything like that. I get to see all that. In on-road, it's funny. I look at the front, and if I'm rubbing on the carpet, and there's been times where I'm like, man, this car acts weird at this one corner, and I don't get it. And it don't even like hear it scraping on the carpet, but then you look at the front bumper or the front lip, and it's full of black, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh, this is exactly where it's touching, right? Chuck, you're laughing because you see me do that a couple times.
Well, that, and I do it too. So what I ended up doing is I paint all my bodies with a black front bumper, so no one can tell that I'm scrubbing. That's all that.
But yeah,
that's a strategy.
Yeah, that is another strategy, but that's a bad one because touching the body, like what it does is it makes it, especially on road, it can make it act super weird in one corner, and you not realizing you're overdriving the car hard up that corner, and the body's touching and stuff like that can cause all that mischievousness, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, like with the way that on-road bodies in general, I mean, specifically touring car bodies have developed in the last 5 or 6 years. Getting the mounting position and everything nailed is so important to the handling characteristics that if you're dragging your body across the track, your splitter height doesn't matter. if you're just dumping it into the carpet every time you hit the sweeper, it's
right.
it's a total package. So I mean, and to your point, Chuck, too, about cleaning them and kind of checking them and all that sort of thing. It's super important, especially in on-road, maybe a little less in off-road because they're not so aero dependent. But just being mindful of, like, if there's damage, fix it. Don't like, oh, that crack's not that bad, I'll just leave it alone, whatever. Like, because again, like bodies are such a large component of the handling of your car. I mean, they can completely change a car.
100%.
Yeah, and even even the mounting position, like I was mentioning earlier, like you mount it 4 millimeters forward versus neutral, it's like it's a completely different car again. So
it's funny when you see people that over drilled their holes and they're like, it's fine. It's like, no, man, that's like a 4 millimeter jiggle there. That's a lot.
yeah. I messed up the body mounting on the twister that I ran at Car pretty badly, and so I'm sitting here grinning because I was basically using the rear horizontal body post to like push the body forward, so to make sure that it was like at the forward position that I wanted. But now I've got I got all sorts of Lexan patchwork to make sure that the holes don't just like the body supports just don't blow through the holes now. So
that's awesome. Chuck, what did you have for your number one?
I think you guys covered it already, but not just having a setup sheet, but having a checklist or an order of operations. And that's important with touring cars now because the suspensions are so dynamic. If you adjust your toe and camber and then you do your ride height last, your total car is just, it's not right. Like, because your ride height at 5 mil is going to be, your toe and your camber is going to be so different just because of all the bump steer now. It's going to be so different versus when you had your car originally before setup and it was at 7. Like, 2 millimeters makes a huge difference now of ride height. So have that order of operations. check things in order. That's a really important thing that a lot of people, especially who are new to the hobby, they overlook it because they're like, oh, I did check my camber, I did check my right, I did check this, but they checked it in such a weird order that it's just like this car is not set up.
Yeah, my order of operations has always been tweak downstops, ride height, camber. I guess now with the automatics,
It's the Huddy
caster.
way. They're the Huddy book. Yeah.
And then caster, and then toe. Toe is typically last, but
Right.
yeah.
You know, it's what you. I know what you're saying, Chuck. Is come up with a routine. It's funny, like even in real racing, that's what they have is a routine of going through the engine and tires and so on and so on. Because you get used to that routine, you're never going to miss a step, right? And there's always been that time. Even I've been, bad for it when I'm drawn the driver's stand and said, "Damn, did I check my wheel nuts?" And because I wasn't part of my routine of just going over things over and over again, right?
Always check your nuts, man. Always check them.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about the nuts.
If Darren's still on listening in, I've seen more wheels fall off of his cars than almost anybody else recently. So Darren, check your nuts, Darren.
We only say that with love, Darren. We only say that with love. Danny, what was your number one?
My number one was it's actually pretty simple, but it makes a big difference. Hey Darren, a clean car is a fast car. So I mean the cleaner you can keep your stuff. For on road, if you got a bunch of foam cars running, you blow all the foam dust off, and sometimes actually with on road, if you notice like a real big collection of foam dust, sometimes that means, oh geez, I got a damper leaking or whatever. And then for off road. Actually, I can't believe I forgot about it when I kind of got back into racing recently. But I know when I was racing 8 scale, I used to use a product from I think it's from Maxima Lubricants. I'm sure like all the big lubrication companies have like a similar one, like Lucas and them. They probably have something similar, but I think it's Maxima SC1. They advertised it for a long time as like clean bike in a can. And it's for motocross. It's kind of like just a silicone spray, but I think it's got some other stuff in it as well. So for off road, if you don't want even running indoors on clay or outdoor on dirt, just kind of scrub a little bit into the arms and into the a few little things just to kind of keep them a little bit cleaner and just cut down on maintenance time. And it's a game changer. I can't believe I forgot about it. I was going through my garage a few nights ago, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot. I used to use this stuff all the time." So of course, we're coming to the end of off-road season for me, but so of course I find it
with nitro. That was so important with nitro to keep your cars clean. Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
and
it also helps you as well because if you notice that your car is oily, you probably have a leak or you're something like it's not just running rich. You probably have a leak somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
definitely. My number one was recheck all your screw torques. That's on road and off road, under the chassis, on the top of the chassis, everywhere. But it doesn't necessarily mean like reef on it kind of thing. The other thing, connected with that is especially I guess nitro and electric on road and off road, is reset your gear mesh. With now today's kind of chassis on road and off road, there's so much flex in these cars, or you hit a curb or a bump or something like that, or a divider or something like that, and the motor slightly moves just a hair, and then people kind of just continue on with their day and realize by the main they now just chewed the spur gear because it constantly kept moving throughout the day, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was my number one.
Yeah, there's a lot of noisy cars out there, and a lot of them could definitely be prevented.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, I guess Chuck, do you have anything else, or Danny, do you have anything else to add to this, maintenance talk as well?
Nothing from the maintenance side of things. But I guess I'll take the opportunity to plug our race again. April 19th to 21st in Saskatoon here. Our race is listed on RC sign up. Got it up there a little while ago here, and the rules are on there as well. Again, thank you to all our sponsors, RC America, Ultra RC Hobbies, and R80 Racing Development, Jansen Hot Rods, Great Canadian Oil Change on Central, and then Tony Mari out of Lloyd for the body sponsorship as well, and we're picking up new sponsors kind of every day, sort of leading up to the event. So it'll be a good time.
That's awesome.
Hopefully, there's lots of folks out there that can make it. So.
And I guess how do people sign up and stuff like that?
Yeah, so we've got initially I think we were doing a little bit of pre-registration just kind of through our Facebook page, but realized that there might be a little bit of a barrier to entry there because it's not how people usually do it. So got us listed on RC sign up, and there's no payment on there, but we'll probably do a couple batches of if we see pre-registered, we'll just reach out for payment or whatever, but. Yeah, so we've got a few pre-entries trickling in. Got a couple guys from Calgary I saw, and I think one or two from Edmonton. And so we know it's a little bit last second to kind of get the pre-registrations going, but figured we'd put them up there and let's kind of see where we're at. So.
And then, sorry, what classes are you running as well?
Yeah, so we're running stock and mod touring, 12 scale stock. Mini, USGT, F1, and front wheel drive. I think I covered them all. So and again, yeah.
And if you need a
just
place
to clarify,
go to the Confederation Hotel. Yeah.
and just to clarify, what motors are you running for stock and 12 scale?
Yeah,
because those are always the two big ones.
Yeah, so for stock touring car, we decided to kind of stick with the tried and true 21.5s that most folks are running right now. But I know there's a lot of we kind of looked, and there's a lot of 12 scale interest out of Alberta, and I know you guys do some funny things there, and you run 13.5s for stock still. So yeah, so. I say that in jest, of course, but yeah. So we decided to go to 13.5 for 12 stock, just so hopefully get a few more cars out. I know lots of the Edmonton guys were pretty psyched about coming. So, and then they run a lot of 12 scale there. Ian and Doug and
yes.
Rob and yeah, there's a pretty good 12 scale contingent there. So. Decided to make that change a little bit late in the game. So, and the other change, I guess, that we made, if anybody had looked at the rules kind of prior to earlier today, initially we were going to go with a 32 tire, sort of gravity Jayco or sweep, kind of run what you brung, and just due to guys not really having a lot of 32s. I know Calgary's been on the 28 train for a while, and so is Edmonton, and not 110% sure about what other clubs are doing, but we decided to just kind of open it up for tires just this year, just to kind of make things easier for guys to come out and enjoy the race. So yeah. Bring all your Volantes, you can run them.
Well, I love Volantes. I love them. They're awesome tires.
Super solid tire. Yeah, super solid. I was very happy with them. Take a little bit to break in, but once they start to get good, they definitely they just get better and better. So.
Oh, we just had somebody on our YouTube page. John Workman says he's on his way. He's bringing his 12 scale. So
cool. Awesome.
He's another 12 scale battler. Yeah. Which
yeah, absolutely.
awesome.
That'll be great to see out, John.
Yeah. For sure. And Chuck, you guys got anything going on in other than the barn coming up and stuff like that, or
will
we hear something soon?
We are still running it Overgear Racing till May, and that's
awesome.
Our indoor carpet. Our classes are a little bit different as well. 21.5 touring stock, 21.5 scale spec. We also run a GT12, which is a 2-cell 21.5 12 scale with rubber tires. So that's a little different, but it seems to catch on. Just because it's a lot more welcoming when you don't have to buy a 1-cell speed control.
No, yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Yeah.
1 cell's a little bit
of a
different game.
End of May again, we're gonna start running outside, which is Ready to Run Raceway. That's where we get to run nitro cars, 10 scale nitro touring. 8 scale nitro touring, and there's also touring electric mod and touring electric stock 17.5 outside, because the track is like 200 feet long. So that's where we switch from a 21.5 to a 17.5. Because, 21.5 on a 200-foot straightaway. I mean, we still have scale spec, but it's not a class that we want experienced guys to run in. It's more of a, get your feet wet, have some fun. Because, man, it gets kind of boring running a 21.5 on a 200-foot straightaway.
Yeah, that'd
Just
be
saying,
like a 3 or 4 second straight. That'd be a long time. You could have a nap in there.
You remember watching those guys at Time Zone? I was like, wow, man, I'm like closing my eyes here and then opening them, and they're still on the straightaway.
Yeah. 17.5 is a little boring there, but
No, I get
21.5
that,
is something else.
But yeah, we do nitro outside, and that's fun. There's not a lot of nitro touring cars available, but if you can get your hands on one, it's a fun time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's the tease for me to come down for nitro on road. Oh boy.
Right.
So here in Calgary, just FYI to all the viewers, Calgary, we've actually extended a season for on road. It's going until April 25th, I think, is our last Sunday. You can always check out all the information on our website, carcarcalgary.ca. And then big race that's coming up for off-road in Calgary is RC Gears and the Meltdown, which is on April 26th to 28th. And it's a big off-road event, outdoor track, 10 scale, 8 scale, nitro, electric, everything. So, registration I know is open for that, for those of you guys that want to sign up for that. And all the information is on their website, rcgears.net. And I guess with that being said, Danny from Sarkar, Saskatoon, thank you very much for being on the show. As always, Chuck, I love having you on the show. Thank you very much for running home as fast as you could from working and getting on the show with us and making me sweat.
I had to run home. Here. I had to stop at the store to buy myself a Ken doll. See if you can see it. I had to this just came out. It is awesome. Oh man, I got myself a Ken doll. Yeah.
I expect nothing less, Chuck.
And then, Chuck, is there any closing words you want to give for, like last time? Well, is there any closing words that you want to give out?
Just got to hammer home that point. If your screws and nuts are worn out, just get rid of them. Just throw away your nuts. Flush them down the toilet. I don't know. Just get rid of them. Just don't put them on your car. It's not a good idea. If your nuts and screws are out, destroy them. Throw them out.
So far, we have in the trash now transponders and old drivers, right? And we're just going to keep collecting more and more trash.
Destroy your transponders and flush your nuts. Yeah. That's
awesome, guys. Thank you very much for being on the show. I also, just so FYI, our episode 3 is going to feature, as I said, Blaine Everingham from Car, and I'll be very lucky also to have Dave Durock, representative of RC Gears, on. So it's going to be an awesome show. So tune in. We'll post up the dates and stuff like that as I get things locked down. But guys, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Hopefully we see lots of you guys out there at the race at Sarkar in April here.
Awesome.
Good to see you again, Danny. Yep.
Yeah, good to see you, Chuck.